11.2 PTR is live. We got opinions coming out now about what people think about 11.2, how they're feeling about it overall. I mean, I'm excited to do it. I am. But let's see this one here. Bellular. I played every new feature in 11.2. Let's see what Bellular has to say about the patch overall and whether or not we should be excited.
Alright, so by now, you know what 11.2 is, you know that Season 3 is looking good, but of course, World of Warcraft should be and is more than just seasons and new instances. This patch has now been up in the PTR for a while, and that means we can answer that burning question: are Blizzard still pumping out more of the same, or will this actually feel fresh and feel worth your time? And as always, the answer is both a little bit of yes and a little bit of no. So instead, I'm going to run you through the entire patch.
I mean, more of the same. Like, yeah, what are we getting? Well, we're getting, new raid, new Mythic Plus season, a new land, and then a new, silly little slot item that you're going to be grinding out to make stronger throughout the patch. Blizzard moved away from borrowed power. But this entire expansion, they seem to love to give us like that little item to grind out, right? They gave us the Cersei's anal ring. Then they moved on from there. What did we get? We got the belt right now. What else did we get besides those two items? And now we're getting the Reshi Wraps cape. So they seem to love to just like give us an item that lasts like a point-something patch, and then we continue using it on throughout the next season. So we already know that the belt actually is not going to be something that we're going to continue to use throughout Season 3. So really, the belt and the ring are going to be gone, and it's just going to be the Reshi Wraps that we're using this entire season. But we'll see if it's exciting. I don't mind an item to grind out. I just think it's kind of getting tedious. This is the feature they keep giving us.
Then you can get an idea for yourself.
We'll see.
There's actually something more important because I have got an absolute unit for you. So, how many charging bricks are fighting for space under your desk? I kind of counted mine. It's a rat's nest. It's not fun. And that is where today's sponsor comes in. Ugreen's new Nexode 500 watt charger is mad.
It's a temporary system.
Yes, 500 watts. You're not used to hearing that because this is the world's first 500 watt gallium nitride desktop charger. You got 6 ports, 5 USB-C, 1A in a single unit, so it'll handle all of your devices, like say, 5 laptops simultaneously, or it just being your charging station. As an example, my professional cameras, all that stuff.
Sponsors pay the bills. Yeah, you're saying so many sponsors. A sponsor will pay more than the entire video makes in its lifetime. So I understand the grind.
So let's say a MacBook Pro 16 charged to 60% in 30 minutes. And what's running all of this is 6 upgraded gallium nitride Infinity chips running at 95% efficiency, which keeps everything nice and stable and compact. It smartly distributes its power so that all of the ports work as you would expect. There are sensors to monitor temperature 100 times a second so that it's safe. That plus the vertical design means that this has got the heat dissipation that it needs to basically back up it being so goddamn powerful. So this is it. The Ugreen Nexode 500 watt charger is available on Amazon and the Ugreen website. It can be found, funnily enough, under my desk. The links are down in the description. There are lunch discounts as well.
There it is. So check out the links, boys.
And
Zelda probably, we got this video and one more, and then we're going to open up raid.
Absolute price to performance king.
Class changes. All right.
One thing's been curious over the last few months, and that's that we've had fewer class changes than we were used to, which basically made me think that Midnight was going to hit us like a tsunami. But actually, no, not just Midnight. We have really good news today, because if you're one of the few lucky specs, you are getting some huge upgrades.
Yeah.
Like, for an example, Frost Death Knight's experimental rework. So here's the big news. Breath of Sindragosa has now become the first non-evoker ability to be empowered. And honestly, I think they've kind of cooked. So here's how it works.
Empowered? Is there a hold to charge? Oh, shit.
For 8 seconds. And
when did this happen? How did I miss this? Breath of Sindragosa is now a click to hold ability? Now, is it the first? I thought I thought the Mung Wind Kick is also a click to hold. Am I wrong? Is that only in Plunderstorm that it's like that? Because I thought that was a click to hold ability. The Spinning Crane Kick. Maybe I'm wrong. So this is the first click to hold ability now since then? The longer you hold it down, the longer it goes. Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, the longer there's like a window where you want to let it go in to make it optimal too. Interesting. Something draconic makes sense as to be a charge ability.
Level 1 gives you burst damage for 8 seconds, and then it will be back up in 45 seconds. So basically,
I'm not wrong. Okay, J-Mall is right.
Yeah. Level 2 runs longer, but has got a moderate cooldown. And then level 3 is your big commitment, where it'll be up for 30 seconds, meaning it'll feel a little bit more like the classic Breath experience. And for gameplay, what this actually means is real flexibility. Like if you just need some burst
quick
every
breath,
45
yeah.
seconds for ads, use level 1. If you want sustained damage for a boss, go use level 3. So with this, you've got one ability, but you've got multiple uses. And that actually means that to me, it does feel like a compelling use case for the Empower system. So that's pretty cool. And speaking of empowers, we also have got something new with Empower Rune Weapon, which is...
You know what I have a question about? How does this work with single button? Do you hold the single button? Then how do you know it's going to pop up? I guess it shows the ability on the single button thing that it's going to be the next thing you click. You're going to have to click and hold it. Your single button rotation.
So it's no longer a big haste cooldown anymore. Now what it's going to be
is
it
shows the next thing, so you're just going to have to be aware
that generates
that's coming
resources. Essentially think of it as an on-demand runic power and killing machine proc generator, so big old burst of speed. And then there's another huge improvement, and that's that AoE finally works properly. So do you remember the old days where you had Glacial Advance baseline? That is essentially now back. Frost Scythe is guaranteed in your talent tree, and here's the key, it again will work like an AoE Obliterate. So no more Death and Decay weirdness, just Frost Scything for all of your cleave. It should feel pretty good. And even better, you can now talent Pillars of Frost to auto-cast Remorseless Window, which just gives you one less button to worry about. And if you're tired of tab targeting around your Frost Strikes, well, Blizzard have also went and solved that, because there's a new capstone talent. This one transforms Frost Strike procs into Frostbane. And Frostbane is an ability that automatically cleaves and detonates your Shattering Blade stacks. That's actually not it for the changes, because Blizzard are also pushing a Howling Blast playstyle as a real option, so basically not just Obliterate spam, and the tree now supports both of those approaches pretty well. So, all in, right? It honestly looks and feels pretty great. We'll have to see how it shakes out with real numbers, but clearly this is Blizzard's testing ground for some new ideas, right? Things like flexible cooldowns, more engaging resource management, and I've got to imagine that if it works here, we'll probably see it elsewhere. Now, as much as all of that does sound cool, and I think in principle is great, to be truthful, opinion is mixed in some of these things, like say relying on Frost Scythe and removing Death and Decay. Some people just don't like that, which I do understand. So your mileage may vary.
I don't care for Death and Decay personally, but I play as a Blood Decay, and it just has to be down all the time, and it limits you, and you got to always stay inside of it. It's not my favorite thing. I never liked the stay inside this ability. I just don't like them. They're not fun to me. They limit movement. They're tedious. You always got to put them down. I don't know.
I'll certainly say that if nothing else, it's worth a try. Okay. Now let's shift to Unholy, because they've gotten similar changes. Fewer, but similar. And the focus is cleaning up their AoE and simplifying their opener. So here's the real big change. Remember how you guys were juggling like 5 different
I play with it. I don't like it though.
Now we've got 3. Apocalypse replaces Dark Transformation, so that's 1 button instead of 2. Abomination Limb is gone. It's now replaced by Legion of Claws. It's essentially same button, new effect, where you'll get a massive burst of damage and instant wound stacks, but no more gripping enemies around. And overall, right, here's
you guys see that? That's the big one right there, though. He didn't mention it yet. He probably will. Abomination Limb removed. Abomination Limb removed. I don't know. Somebody said that Blood Decay is still going to have it, but I don't know. Isn't this overall Death Knight here? I don't see this being like just not Blood Decay thing. Yeah, no, it is sad. It is Womp Womp, because that's like our big utility. That's our big thing, like as a DK. So I don't get, how they can justify that. They said it's because boss fights are hard to make with A-Bomb Limb existing, but that's just ridiculous. His exact words were, Abomination Limb is replaced by Legion of Claws. Okay.
Massive burst of damage and instant wound stacks, but
I'm guessing it's like an empowered Gorfine's Grasp or something.
And overall, right, here's the new, I guess, landscape of your cooldowns. Think of it like you've got 3 slots. So cooldown slot 1, that's Dark Transformation or Apocalypse. Cooldown slot 2 is either Army or Abomination or Legion of Claws.
Or
and
Abomination.
Then slot 3 is
the new
Unholy
Abomination.
Assault. Basically, it stays the same, and you'll have 3 buttons maximum for your CTs, which overall should feel a good bit cleaner. But you're also getting something new in the form of Desecrate. So you can pick it instead of Defile, and what it does is kind of neat. Basically, you place your Death and Decay, and then with this, you can blow it up for fairly...
Another death.
Crycons. Thank you for the follow, man. Or sub, I should say. Thank you for the sub. 12 months. Oh, you just hit a year. A Priming. Thank you, Cairo. Appreciate that, man. And congratulations on the 1-year badge.
Massive damage,
Death Knight
and you'll still get the ground effect benefit stuff as well. So Looks kind of neat. Again, we'll just have to wait and see how it all shakes out. Okay, let's move over to Shadow Priest because you guys have got another mini rework, and Blizzard are finally solving one of Shadow's biggest problems, which basically is the rotational chaos. Which, you know, as far as problems go, really is a large one. Okay, so Shadow Caresh has now got 2 charges and a 15-second cooldown. There is a trade-off, and that is that it only hits 6 targets now. But there is a...
I must have missed the cadence. But by the way, what I've been saying about Shadow Priest this whole time is they should be pumped. I would not mind Shadow Priest being top DPS this entire patch. Just like, you know, thematically, it makes sense to me. Like, we're going to the Void. We're going to a planet that was completely destroyed by the Void. Why can't Shadow Priest just be badass for this entire patch? I'm not biased towards them. I don't have a Shadow Priest. I never played Shadow Priest. I just think in terms of lore, like, they should be strong for this patch.
Real win in here. And that is no more random Shadow or Death procs cluttering up your screen and your priorities. Instead, you just get a buff that makes your execute phases more powerful. So, cleaner bars, hopefully cleaner decisions, and the final talent row has also been reworked as well. Essentially, it is the same effects, but Blizzard fixed the resource problems and the balance issues that were plaguing Shadow. But there is a controversial part. Come on, it's WoW class changes, there has to be. And that is that Mind Spike is gone. It's completely removed. So fully, this spec is now committing to Mind Flay as its filler ability. So whether you loved or hated Mind Spike, that's it. It's done. At least assuming this makes it live. Now, for something new, you do get Void Volley. This is an AoE follow-up to Void Torrent.
There's a lot of changes to Shadow Priest.
Torrent and then Volley for some extra cleave damage. Then next, a quick note about Hunters. So BM and MM are overall...
before he switches over, yeah, you're right, Maddie. They did change. They made a lot of changes meant to the Shadow Priest that nerfed him into the fucking ground. So I hope that these buffs help him out and these changes. And I guess the focus on Mind Flay is a filler. Why not just make them good? Make them good, at least for this patch.
A similar treatment. There's just lots of under the hood math.
Then you can nerf them again.
But the real cool thing is the quality of life, especially that's coming from marksmanship, and I really love this one. So
Warlocks too can be good. Yeah.
Now cast at half a global cooldown. So you know the way it would basically feel like molasses? It would feel like a bit of a car crash just trying to get your spells off. Well, the half GCD is technically a small change, but it's one that makes the rotation flow far better. Now, that's...
Although, do Warlocks draw a lot from the Void? Aren't they Fel focused? And they pull... Fel is a completely different the thing on the cosmic chart than Void is. So I don't know if I should say that, you know, Warlocks should be empowered the same way Shadow Priests are.
Everything. It is the most exciting stuff, though.
I don't play Warlocks. I don't know.
Deep dive in all of the class changes.
They play with the Void a little bit.
Never more of them make it to PTR, and Blizzard get a few design iterations in because basically, looking at all this stuff, I think they're trying to tell us something with the direction that they're moving in. I want to see that play out, and then we'll fully evaluate it. But for now, let's move on with the rest of the patch, starting with the story. But don't worry, not spoilers.
Okay, not spoilers, okay.
This is less about the story itself and more the overall story experience, and if it's something that you might like. But basically, I want to say this. This is one of the most enjoyable main story quests we've had in a while. Quite a while, actually. Oh. And it's not because of anything massive and mind-blowing, right? And it's not even because the story is, like, absurdly crazy good. I think it's because Blizzard seems to finally get something, or at least be able to get that through into the game. And it's pretty simple. Characters need to have personalities, right? They need to feel different. And Blizzard have actually delivered that. Basically, you know the way one of the big problems you can get in writing is characters that really sound similar, like they might have different motivations, but it just feels like it's all plowing through the plot. Characters kind of sound the same, like in terms of the voice they're written in, all of that stuff. But this actually is way, way better. And it's not in the form of just big hype moments that are super cinematic that people get wowed by. Because as much as that...
But by the way, yeah, those big hype moments, we need them. I feel like that's one thing that Dragonflight lacked a lot of, is we never really got the big hype moments. They tried at one point with like the Avengers Assemble moment, if you guys remember that, with where the Dragonflights assembled all the heroes from the expansion, and we all like stood there. I forgot what it's a forgettable moment, but they tried and it wasn't that great. But you need the frickin' Varian Rin dropping from the top of the ship and dropping his sword into a giant elite mob one-shotting it. Like, yeah, those moments are badass. Again, they tried it here with Shadowlands, or not with Shadowlands, with the War Within, where Anduin did it, but again, it was janky and not that well pulled off. You gotta have them. As maybe as cliche as they might be, a big cinematic moment is freaking badass, and it just builds hype. So I hope they have some of those, and not so it's not just all holding hands and talking like Dragonflight was.
That is good. Sometimes it can kind of, confuse you with fancy things. Here, what's good is just we get tons of little moments, right? Just struggling across Caresh, we just get a perfect amount of tension between the various people we ally with. And instead
I mean, honestly, you said Stoic, the biggest hype moment in the War Within as the Ancient/Battle of the Mount Hyjal Redux. Is that the coolest moment to me so far in the War Within was when, what's his name, that badass Griffin Rider, like suicide bombed himself into that giant mob so we could survive. You guys remember that? Like he took out the explosives all around, and it was like in the intro campaign. I thought that was a really cool moment. It was, we were doing Rookery. I think it was like the intro into Rookery or something. It was a pretty cool moment. I thought that was kind of fun. But besides that, I don't remember any big epic moments from this expansion so far.
the usual self-seriousness or overwhelming sweetness, the way they kind of feel like that with the writing.
Galliwix
Here,
was anticlimactic.
It just feels kind of real, right? Every voice line is sharp, bitter, snarky. They're actually committing to a tone. It kind of works. And compared to the dry dragons of Dragonflight, my god, it's a massively better change. And even compared to, say, the goblins of Undermine sometimes being a little bit too goblin-y, a bit too goofy, this is just a way better balance. This feels like a sort of Warcraft that I could really find myself being more invested in. So basically, in that front, it's kind of
There were a couple hype moments like Zalateth and early in the expansion. You're right. The Zalateth Khadgar fight was kind of cool, but I wouldn't say Anduin resurrecting Khadgar was a hype moment. That was like, it was a cool, touching moment, I guess. But it's not comparable to say like something, I don't know, like Gandalf, at the top of the mountain, look to my light of the first dawn, look to the east of the first dawn, and he fucking comes down with the Rohirrim down the mountain. Like, there's nothing like that. That's what I'm talking about when I say, like, a big, epic moment. Anduin rezzing, Khadgar, it's cool. He's playing with the light a little bit. Okay, but it's not like this, like Goosebumps epic moment.
billion times
That's
better.
what I want. I want the Rohirrim's charge.
There's something else Blizzard have committed to. Caresh is a new kind of zone, so the walkable bits are pretty small. And it's huge, essentially, because of volume, right? You're flying around these gorgeous, like, void-scarred sort of skyboxes, going to all of these different little craggy rocks and islands and things. And it really works. It basically is like Outland's
cool.
Netherstorm kind of meets Argus from patch 7.3. But with a obvious difference. Because remember, in Argus, Blizzard did not let us fly. They wanted us to deal with their level design, which in the Antoran Wastes, not all of us loved. This time, though, they've basically found a way to have their cake and eat it. Here's how it works. Normally, you can fly freely. But then, when you're phase diving, which is essentially you traversing what they call untethered space, well, then you are stuck in the ground. And that's because Caresh is basically two zones in one. There's the normal zone where you're flying at full speed from point A to point B, like an absolute ADHD'd out MMO gamer trying to tick every single box, getting completely lost,
Accurate.
right? That's basically how I play the game. So there's that. But then whenever you're phase diving, well, the level design actually matters. So in phase diving, you've got to climb about the place manually. You've got to run around, holes, deal with terrain, essentially everything you do when you're grounded, but Blizzard have basically been able to commit to that design a little bit more, essentially to give explorers something more to sink their teeth into, and as a reward for all of that, it's got chunky quests which are called warrants, so you'll be doing those. But other than that, what it does is it changes all the mobs, all the treasures, and all of the rares in the zone. I suppose it's almost like the storm phase of the Siren Isle, but way more thematic, and of course in a full patch zone, not just one very small island. It's also got its own...
I think I did the storm phase like once to complete a quest or something. I never did it again. So, I mean, I guess the storm phase was the prelude to this whole, ethereal phase that we're going to be getting. Hopefully it's cooler and there's a good reason to go into it. We'll see.
Currency that you can earn, and that will give you new exploring powers, which you use with your cloak, which is honestly all pretty neat. So essentially, it's a fairly new type of zone design where they're actually making use of the fact that we can fly and that you're sort of in space. However,
Phasing sounds
there's
like
an
shit
alec
to
in the
me.
room. If you're tired of farming rares and treasure...
Yeah, it might just be another gimmicky feature. I don't know. It depends on how it's going to be used. Like they talked about using it in raids, even in dungeons. There's going to be like this new phasing thing to delves too, where you go through a portal that randomly shows up. I don't know. They're trying with it. If it's not cool, I'm just not going to do it. That's the truth.
and secrets, achievements, mounts,
keep playing the game
renowns,
the way
all
I
that
usually do.
stuff. What's this going to be like for you? Well, that's where I'd say we haven't really noticed anything special about Caresh, in that it is still like solo WoW world content. It's not like that's just magically changed, just that now there's phase diving and the progression that comes with it, along with your cloak. And that stuff does actually all work pretty damn well. It does feel a lot better. But if you really need it to be a transformational experience, well, no, it still is WoW world content. But there is something I think everyone will appreciate, and that's Tazavesh. Tazavesh is our hub, and yes, that's the very same Tazavesh that is a mega dungeon. So it's going to be here as a full player city. And being a
cool.
new city
I like
in WoW,
Tazavesh.
it's got quests, secrets, and insane amounts of utility. As an example, it's got a portal network, 2 delves that are all around Khazalgar, which basically means someone at Blizzard has really realized that the travel time can kind of suck. And certainly, if you wanted to earn loads of gold by cranking out some of your weeklies, just plowing through some delves, well, that portal network will be pretty damn cool.
Yeah, I'm happy about the portal thing. As you know, Belial mentioned travel time does like I don't really mind traveling over an entire like a continent, like flying over lands. It's kind of nice. It's thematic. It's cool. You look around while you're doing it, whatever. And it's so quick now. But the thing that I do mind is this expansion, the flying through Azeroth's anus, this entire like up and through, the up and down aspect of it, where you can't really cut across anything. You got to legitimately go through the holes. It's annoying. I don't. I like the fact that they're giving us portals to delves because this expansion, like navigating through the core way, is not exciting. Yeah, it's not a fun thing. So I'm glad that they're giving us portals now because yeah, travel time does kind of stink, and there's no shortcuts. You got to go through the hole.
At least as far as I'm concerned, it's a really nice city to hang out in. Let's talk about the event. It's a modern WoW patch, so you basically knew it was going to have one. And this time it's called Ecological Succession. It's a new weekly world event. And the good news is, it's a breath of fresh air. The reason why is that this one is simple. I think Blizzard have figured out that we're kind of bored having similar feeling events every patch. So this time, the weekly box just comes from something that's fairly easy. I mean, in a way, it's barely even an event. You just show up once a week to the Oasis to go and help out. You then do one of 2 things. Either repel some Devourers who are attacking the perimeter, or just do some repeatable weekly quests. And essentially here, Blizzard have found a way to kind of make you feel smart, where as you're doing this, you'll also be double dipping on those weeklies for some extra rewards. Basically, they know quest stacking feels fun, and they've worked that into how this event works. And I'll certainly say it's a welcome change from having to do all of the different gimmicky undermine events.
Yeah.
Not that they were particularly contemptible, variety is good, but I think Blizzard are learning when to basically give us a break and focus on.
I think what he mentioned when he says quest stacking, I'm assuming he means like if there's a quest to like complete a heroic dungeon, but then you also have another quest to collect the head of the final boss at the end of Rookery. So you can go do Rookery, complete the dungeon, and get the head of the final boss to complete 2 quests with 1 run. Like, that's what I'm assuming he means. Yeah, that does feel good. I like it when that happens. I always get excited. I'm like, oh shit, I can go do this and complete 2 quests. Yeah, why not?
On just playability and getting
so Blizzard's playing on that. That's a good idea.
Not a crazy amount of disruptions and just indexing in the core MMO things that feel good, like quest stacking. So over time, through this, we're going to be bringing more flora and fauna to the Oasis, and that means that it won't just be the same quests after, every single week. And basically, in terms of feel, it's a little bit like a zoo that we sort of build ourselves over the weeks. Just kind of nice. And if you're a fan of the more dragonflighty, light-hearted, sort of pun-heavy side quests, well, you'll love this event, actually. So, for what it is, I think they've actually done a pretty good job. But I did mention side quests, and I certainly need to talk about the batch that we're getting in this patch.
Side chicks, nice.
Well, if you ever wanted to get to know Brokers, Ethereals, and Void Elves better, this is basically your patch. You're going to be very happy, and as one of those people, I am pretty happy. Basically, WoW these days has got stacks of well-written and memorable side quests. I think that really started in patch 9.2, to the point where it's something we've just sort of came to expect. But I'd say they're only getting better, and in Caresh, well, we just find a zone that's absolutely jammed with them.
So I mean, the one cool thing about this zone, and the reason why I think, like, man, I love that hookah right there. That's cool. Like, the layout of it all, the way the lore is playing out and everything, is that, like, if you do get playable Ethereals, like, if they do pull the trigger, and they really make Ethereals playable after this patch, or maybe as a, like, pre-patch thing to midnight, this can be their starting zone. Like, Caresh is going to be laid out there for all of them. Like, you can make an Ethereal, you start on Tazavesh, you do some quests to learn about your home world and your home lore and everything, and then bam, you're in Azeroth. And it's a great way to play it through. Like, they're really setting it up to be a starting race. Now, whether or not they actually push the button or flick the switch or flick the bean, whatever you want to call it, we'll have to wait and see. But I think it would be a big win if they did, for sure. Sam doing drugs, yeah.
It's absolutely jammed with them. So
you can smoke tobacco with these. You gotta smoke weed,
the
if
narrative
you want
stuff.
to.
If you actually just like sinking your teeth into the overall vibe,
Giving
of
Blizz ideas. I'm
Warcraft,
trying.
learning about the lore and that kind of thing, then you will have hours of game to play even after the campaign is done. I'm not going to spoil all of them though, so let's just move on to the next thing, which is the cloak.
Yeah, this is the the little
Right, this may
grindy
sound a
thing.
bit silly to you because you've not really got a chance to play it, but certainly I'll say, having played with it, it feels really good to have an artifact cloak again, because this one's actually
Everyone likes
pretty
to play
nice.
with it. Yeah.
Now, also, there's some nice usability things. It does mean you've got a slot locked off for the patch you can be happy with. The cloak has got a bunch of buffs attached to it based on your spec, and Blizzard are even smart enough to let us customize our secondary stats. That's in the form of the cloak using new fiber sockets, which basically are just gems for your
More
cloak
sockets,
that
yeah.
tailors are able to make. Pretty nice. But most importantly, unlike the last few cloaks, it's not a pain in the ass to get whatsoever. You unlock it during the story, you upgrade it with a weekly, and progress is properly account-wide. Now, I'll totally admit this could just be Stockholm Syndrome, but something about getting an upgradable cloak that's tied to the world and tied to a raid with...
Is Zalateth going to become friendly? Like, seriously, what the hell is this? I know he said no spoiler, but we're, like, legitimately taking quests from Zalateth during this patch? What the fuck's going on here? And I already saw the shit about the boss fight that I'm not even going to mention right now, but there's some weird shit going on in the boss fight. Nobody's seen the fight yet, but you can tell from some of the text that's going on in the boss fight, or the abilities, actually. It's the ability journal. If you go look at the abilities, there's weird shit going on in there with Zalateth. Sylvanas 2.0, I don't know. I don't want her to get a redemption arc. I don't want her to become a good guy. I don't know how I feel about this. Maybe I'm just talking shit. She's not going to become a good guy, but this whole thing's weird.
Some neat mechanics. Yeah, just does sort of feel proper World of Warcraft at this point. And even better, it does.
Do you
mean
want
that
to
you
know?
don't
No,
have
I don't want to
put
know
annoying
yet.
Cloak drops in the loot tables. And also, you get all the benefits of an artifact item, something you can pump up with a bunch of power, have some cool effects with, but without really any of the usual downsides. So, I'd say it's a big up.
He cut himself off there. Aesthetic,
And speaking
okay.
of things that you can wear, well, this patch is an absolute dream come true for people who like certain types of aesthetics. So, if you like ethereals, as I do, or edgy void gear, as I do, then
Nice.
basically good news. This patch is rammed with that stuff. Everything's just got that familiar kind of sharp aesthetic. The sets and the weapons kind of look nothing like what we've had before. Like, they're really cool. As an example, warlocks. You can get a void portal for your face. Basically, the lay
That's
of the
cool.
land
The
here is
warlock
that the
set's
world
nice.
sets look absolutely amazing. The tier sets, I'd say, are generally less impressive than them, which
Yeah,
means you'll probably
I
see
agree.
armies of ethereal-looking players everywhere you go, which I suppose is kind of fitting once you get through the story.
Right.
Anyway, of everything, it's actually the weapons that stand out the most here. Just because everything's got that crackle of void lightning to it, or just a sharp colored edge, super bright, super striking, and pretty much the perfect follow-up to what, say, the Burning Crusade's atrocious clown colors were probably aiming for back in the day. So, at least in that regard, I love what we'll be able to get here.
Nice, looks good. Yeah, the gear looks
staying
good.
free
The
from
open world
spoilers,
gear
that's
does.
the lion's share of what's going on in this patch. So by now, you'll kind of know if you're excited by this or not. I'd say subjectively, from our time in PTR, this does look like a really good patch that's full of improvements. It's not massively exciting or massively different, but I think that that's the sort of energy you're looking for from an expansion. For a patch, you basically just wanted to be a really good World of Warcraft patch. And broadly, I think they have actually achieved that. Still, if you want something drastically new as a solo player, this may not impress you, but if you've liked The War Within so far, but, maybe didn't like the story or the theme of the Undermine patch, and you just want to get back to stuff that feels like it's proper A-plot with real big stakes, then, yeah, this is actually a really good slice of that.
Good.
Of course, if you're more of a Raider or a Mythic Plus player, I'd say this patch is shaping up in a way that could be excellent. Obviously, they could totally cock it up by launch, but what we can
Cock
see
it
thus
up.
far is that Blizzard's focus here is on massive seasonal upgrades. There are so many of them, and we covered them in this video earlier in the week, so go check that out next.
Nice. Yeah, look, I think 11.2 looks good. It does, and I think the general summary he kind of gave here is that it does. He thinks it looks good too. The story, everything looks good. The class changes, the aesthetic, obviously. I mean, bandage wraps for your cocks. Why not? Yeah, good looking patch. Excited to play it. We'll see how it all pans out.